You got the message Rabbi Breitowitz wasn't coming tonight? Okay. So you're in for a good surprise. Seems like everyone else knew but you, but it's okay. My style is like almost completely the opposite of Rabbi Breitowitz. I don't think he even has notes, not even like a little crib sheet, as Rabbi Chesed has like little notes. I don't know how he gives 2.5 hour shiur with a piece of paper that big. But Rabbi Breitowitz has no notes. Where on the other hand, I feel much more confident in what, and let me explain who we're going to be learning. Many people have heard of the Kli Yakar, or Kli Yakar, if you're from America, right? So, his amazing story. I don't want to not bore you, Chas v'Shalom. It's not boring at all. I don't want to waste too much time. But he has a legend. There's a legend about his life, and I believe that it's very true. It must be true. His yahrzeit, according to many, just passed on the 7th of Iyar. However, I am of the opinion, not me, there is an opinion, and I think I like that better, that it was the 7th of Adar. And why is that? Because when he was born, a great light was brought into the world, and there was really a physical light. Apparently his parents had owed a duke, we're talking 400 years ago, in Europe, not Prague, but in the vicinity, somewhere in Europe over there, and the parents owed money, and the duke threw them in a pit and told his servant to not feed them and let them die. He was born in that pit. The servant saw this great light, and he realized this is a very special child, and he fed the family for over 6 months. And when the duke found out these people were still alive, he couldn't believe it, and he had them offed, and he took the kid as his own. So the Kli Yakar is basically what we call a tinok shenishba, a Jewish child who's captured by the Gentiles, brought up as like in Pharaoh's house, like a Moses, with the best of the education, the best of the foods. Unfortunately, probably wasn't kosher. He didn't know he was Jewish. And at the age of 12 3/4, his father came to him in a dream and told him, the Maharal of Prague is waiting for you. He's going to teach you what you need to know as a Jew before your bar mitzvah. And he didn't believe it. He says, I'm not Jewish. I don't know who you are. Night after night after night, the father came and tried to convince his child, his son, in a dream, as a ghost. I don't think it was a dream. It was like as a ghost. Maybe it was a dream. And the kid wouldn't listen. Very stubborn. And the father haunted the entire house so bad that the kid got the message and ran to the Maharal. The Maharal was waiting for him, and he learned many years by the Maharal. The Maharal had a vision that the Duke was onto him because he wanted his kid back. He invested 3/4 years, the best of education. We're talking like culture, language, science, math, you name it, probably religion as well. So he sent them off to the Shlach Kodesh. So the Kli Yakar, Reb Shlomo Ephraim, learned by the two greatest luminaries, by the Maharal and by the Shlach Kodesh. And on the Maharal's deathbed, he told his students, go and bring Shlomo Ephraim to be the Rav in my place. He was a Rav for 10 years, he was sick, he died. His name was Ephraim, and they added the name Shlomo. That's why we call him Shlomo Ephraim. And on top of that, what did I want to say? That the Rav after the Kli Yakar, after Shlomo Ephraim, was whom? The Shlach Kodesh. So he was sandwiched, a nobody, a Tinok Shenishba, someone who most likely had a Christian upbringing, right? Who totally turned his life around and became one of the greatest rabbis. And all of the Chumashim that are called the Mikros Gedolos. He's in the Mikros Gedolos, under the Ramban. It's like amazing. So I want to introduce you, if you haven't been introduced to Shlomo Ephraim, some of you have through me, And what he does, he really opens up Rashi for me. I can read a Rashi, and to me it sounds, even though it's a medrash, and a medrash should be full of flavor and taste and depth, for some reason I don't get it. And when I read read and try to understand the Kli Yakar, all of a sudden the whole Rashi has so much more depth. That's for me. I mean, and that's one of the reasons I like him so much. So in chapter 25 in Vayikra, we're in Parsha Behar. We start in the beginning. Hashem spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, and what did he say? All these laws of Shemitah and then Yovel, and they're quite detailed. They're not extremely detailed, that you have the oral Torah for, but there's more details about this particular mitzvah, or these mitzvot, than many other mitzvahs in the Torah. And one of the famous questions we all ask, because Rashi asked it, because Rashi didn't really ask it, he brought down pshat from the Medrash, this statement. Why is the concept of Shemitah by Har Sinai? What is the juxtaposition, the smichut, right? Ma in Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. Weren't all the mitzvahs told at Har Sinai? What's unique about this mitzvah? That would be the question, right? But this quote is, were not all the commandments stated at Har Sinai? Halo kol ha-mitzvahs nemru mi-Sinai? Ella, you know why? Because just as with Shemitah, its general rules and its details and its fine points were stated at Har Sinai, right? Nemru klalateha upratoteha vidukteha mi-Sinai. Afkan, so too, all the commandments, af kulan ne'emru, were all said with their general rules, their fine points were also stated at Sinai, klotehen v'tuktudehem mi-Sinai. And that's what's taught in Torah's Kohanim. Fine. So that, as you notice, in the Kli Yakar, he brings 6 words of Rashi, but I just read pretty much the whole thing. Ma inyan Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. When he says karov l'shmoa means it's near to understanding. I would translate it, it's easy to understand. Karov l'shmoa. What he's about to tell you is going to be a deeper and clearer understanding. Kishiyala Moshe el Har Sinai, achar shiva shvuot. When Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom, went up to Mount Sinai, when did he go up? When did he arrive to go up? He went up on the 49th, right? On the end of 7 weeks. Okay? Shesapri Yisrael Tisha v'arba'im yom min Pesach v'ad Atzeres. As we're in the process now, in the sphere of counting these days towards Mount Sinai, towards what we call the revelation. We should not be afraid of that word. Okay? That's what it was. The great revelation. When we received the Torah. So we started counting, and it's the period between Pesach until Atzeres, 49 days. What happened on that 50th day? Nitkadesh Oz, Otohar. That mountain became sanctified, as we all read in the verses. That you had to separate yourself, you had to become holy yourself, and you had to stand away. You couldn't climb the mountain. Only special people, Moses and the elders, up to a certain point, and then Moses even higher than that. The rest of the people around the edges, and you had to take away even your animals. They couldn't be at the base of the mountain. And what happened on that day? It was holy. The mountain became sanctified. V'ne'asar bizriya v'charisha b'yom chamishim. Of course, it's like a no-brainer. You were not allowed to plow nor harvest on that day. You couldn't go up to the mountain and start eating and plucking apples and cherries and berries. Right? It's holy mountain. Shabo nitna haTorah. On that day, the Torah was given. V'huzman mashichat hayovel. What does Jubilee mean? What does Yovel mean? It means like plenty, right? A lot. There's some gift, some major gift. But he says this is the time that is Mashichat HaYovel, that's drawn forth. Think of energy. Drawn forth this Jubilee. Likro Drur V'chavshi L'Kol Yisrael. It's the time where this freedom, because that's what is happening in the Yovel, You're calling out, you're proclaiming. Now I'm from Philadelphia, so I have a little bit of a bias. There's a bell in Philadelphia called the Liberty Bell. And the verses that clearly state that in the 50th year you free your slaves, right? You proclaim liberty throughout the land, and slaves are then free, and the land returns to its original owners. This idea of declaring or proclaiming dror, what's the word dror mean? We all know it means freedom, but it's based on the idea that a dira, everyone has a dira, hopefully living somewhere, right? Tagar, a dar. Dar means that you have the freedom and the liberty to live wherever you want. That's like the doar. A country, a real country, has to have a doar, a way of transporting mail and letters. Right? If you don't have the doar, you don't have freedom. There's no, and if you don't have the ability to live where you want, you don't have freedom. So it has to do with, in fact, the word yovel is related to the word mobile, being able to transport goods freely. Okay, we know about tariffs and whatnot, and that's justified. But within the country itself, you certainly are able to. But the word, this is something I'd like to teach this a lot, because, especially because the Kli Yakar, as we said in the introduction, it was a tinok shenishba. I want you to know the Chofetz Chaim held that any Jew who grew up outside the land of Israel, in a society, and perhaps even today in Israel, a society that's not a Torah society, that is, let's call it Judeo-Christian. Once you say it's Judeo-Christian, it's no longer Jewish. Okay? So if you're in an influence by a society that is not a holy Torah society, you're a tinok shenishba. And if you come to Israel, you have the status of a Baal Tshuva. Even if you're the Rosh Hashiva, even if you're the son of a Rosh Hashiva, right? And you grew up outside of a Torah society, you come to Eretz Yisrael, you will gain the status. That's called a maila. It's an advantage. You have the status of a Baal Tshuva. It's as if you had no God if you live in Chutz La'aretz. But one of the things that in our strange societies, the non-Jewish societies that we live in, they think, I mean, of course we know better, but they think that, and they proclaim in their religions, that you are free from the law if you have certain beliefs. But the opposite is true. The truth is that the law shall set you free, as I will show you right now. It says in Exodus 32:16, Hashem inscribed the tablets with his own finger. Now the tablets were God's work. This is in Exodus 32:16. And the inscription was God's inscription engraved on the tablets. So in Hebrew, V'haluchot Masa Elohim Hema, V'hamiktav Miktav Elohim Hu, Charut al Haluchot. Charut means engraved upon the luchot. But we're told in Pirkei Avot, if you're familiar with the statement over there, that's in chapter 6, Mishnah 2, Pirkei Avot, and it mentions this verse. Don't read it as engraved as charat or charut, but rather as cherut. The word, why is engraving related to freedom? So as my wife tells me, that when you make borders, that's what you do when you engrave. Because if you're writing on paper, you're adding ink, you're adding something to the paper. But engraving, you're carving out. And the only way you can tell this letter from the next letter is because there are clear borders. When you have borders, that's true freedom. And she says, when finally, when our country has established borders, we will know what real true freedom is, and that's by Israel. And I can only imagine that is also probably what America is going through in terms of having open borders or not having open borders, but we're not going to get political. I promise you. So this idea that through the law, through the tablets, through the 613 commandments were actually inscribed. There are 620 letters on the first set of tablets. 620 letters, 613, one letter for each of the 613 commandments, plus another 7 of the 7 Noachide laws, which were reiterated at Mount Sinai for the whole world to hear and to accept. And what is 620 is keter. Keter Torah. We talk about Keter Torah, the crown of Torah. Keter 620. So this is not the Torah is not just for us. The Torah, meaning the 7 Noachide laws and all their tributaries and toldos, right? The smaller offshoots. This is for the world. The Torah was given specifically for us as the safekeepers and the teachers, but they have an obligation as well. Okay, so here we are. We're learning for ourselves what we need to do when we come into the land that God gives us. As the verse says, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you. By the way, there's unfortunately messianic movements around the world. Most of them are non-Jews, thank God. But nevertheless, we have some students that tell us that they keep Shemitah in Texas. And that they're actually blessed. Okay, Hashem blesses them. But that's not, it's talking about when you come into this land that I'm giving you. The land itself shall observe a Sabbath rest for Hashem. So what does it mean in Hebrew? Diber el b'nei Yisrael v'amart aleihem ki sava'u el haaretz asher ani noten lechem v'shavta haaretz Shabbat laHashem. So going back into the Kli Yakar, he says, this is the cherus al haluchos. This is real freedom that's coming through the law. Al yedei kol hashofar shel matan Torah. And it's through the blowing of the shofar. When we were at the revelation, we saw thunder and heard lightning. I don't know if you follow what I just said. That's not how it's supposed to go. This is, I know there might have been some mushrooms at the base of the mountain, but in truth, we had a external body experience. We had a transcendental experience, out of body experience, and we experienced God like it was unbelievable. And there was a shofar being blown at Matan Torah. Think about this. We're talking about during the Jubilee year, the 50th year, that's when the shofar is going to be blown, on the 10th day of the month, on Yom Kippur, as the verses say. So, just like then the shofar was blown, so too in the 50th year the shofar is going to be blown. And it was that day, on the day of the revelation, the 50th day, that God revealed to Moses all these laws of Shemitah and Jubilee. Specifically, in other words, what did Rashi ask? It was the Medrash, but why was this mitzvah? We never really answered this mitzvah. We just said, okay, just like this mitzvah, all the other mitzvahs are. But still the question remained, why this particular mitzvah? And now we're getting some insight, right? So it's very nice to know that we have an oral Torah, that all the details and all the generalities were given over Mount Sinai, just like Shemitah was, and you can end there and say, okay, that's the relationship, right? What they say, what's that have to do with the price of tea in China, right? You never really answered my question. Now I get it, but even deeper than that, it's a reenactment of Shemitah. I mean, it's a reenactment of the Shemitah is a reenactment of the revelation at Har Sinai. Saying like this, Lomar, Shebemispar Shiva. Ubemispar Teisha v'Arbaim, those numbers, number 7 and number 49, Ani notain kedusha zu, I, God, am giving this holiness, lekol Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. Sheyesh la dimyon v'yachas im Har Sinai, that there's going to be this similarity and relationship between the Mount Sinai at the revelation and the land of Israel on the 7th and 49th, especially the 49th year. And there are 2 quotes of Chazal, Mitzad Hayota Avira Demachachim, from the aspect that the land of Israel, its air causes one to be wise. Interesting Gemara I came across today. It says that the people in Babylon were not that smart. But when they came to Israel, let's start like this, that the Jews in Israel were smarter than the ones in Babylon. But if a Jew came up from Babylon, he was twice as smart as the Jews that were here. It doesn't make any sense. The Jews here in Israel were smarter than the ones in Babylon. But when they ascended and came up, and started breathing the air of Eretz Yisrael, they were twice as smart as the native Jews. And then it says something that really has to have your head spinning, because it says, then the Jews that are born to them are even smarter than they were.
Wow.
So it's the air of Eretz Yisrael that causes one to be smart. So it could be, I think about it, maybe there's a certain, some people take things for granted. So hopefully we live a life where we never take Eretz Yisrael or the air that we're breathing this very moment for granted. And there's another, that's in Baba Basra. And there's another statement in Breshit Rabbah that says, Ein Torah k'Torah says Eretz Yisrael, the Har Sinai. We all hear that first part. We never heard the last two words. There's no Torah like the Torah of Eretz Yisrael and Har Sinai. But the truth is, it's one and the same. And that's what we mean here. What is Shemitah doing next to Har Sinai? What are we learning about that? It's a reenactment, the whole thing. There's a dimion, there's a relationship. Al kein roi liten gam la'aretz hahi. Therefore, it was fitting, God speaking, it's fitting to give also the land of Israel we're talking about, hahi kedushat Har Sinai, the holiness of this Mount Sinai at the time of the revelation, after the numbers acher mispar teisha v'arba'im shana, every 7, l'kein mispar shiva, every 7 and every 49 years, there's a certain kedusha that you feel and you experience during those years. O kedei la'asod zikaron lamamad Har Sinai b'kriyat drur avaret shofar, or perhaps in order to but zikaron, memory, remember, is not the same as other societies and other religions. When we think of zikaron, it's not a distant memory, it's a reliving, a reenactment, just like we have a mitzvah on Pesach to remember, to relive, to see ourselves as if we're leaving Egypt, but to actually re-experience that memory of standing at Har Sinai with the proclamation of freedom, true freedom that comes through the law, and the blowing of the shofar. Now there is something else I wanted to say. That would be, let me just, okay, I can't remember it right now. It might come back to me. But the Kli Yakar says this is in addition to all the other reasons that are given for this mitzvah, why it says at Har Sinai. But he ends by saying, Davar zeh nachon, this is proper, this is true, the karov, the shmoa, and easy to understand. For me, I thought it was fabulous. But we're going to go on. So the verse 2 says, V'shavsa ha'aretz Shabbat laHashem. The land shall observe a Sabbath. Shavsa ha'aretz. The land will cease its work as a Shabbat laHashem. Let me ask you something. What is the reason, practically, that we don't farm, we don't plant, we don't harvest? Supposedly to allow the land to lie fallow and to rejuvenate itself. Because as many farmers have told me, that if you just farm year after year after year, you diminish it, you weaken the land, and it basically would become a desert. You can't do that. So he starts off by saying, B'tam mitzvah zu yesh de'as chalukos. Regarding the reason for this mitzvah, there are many opinions, several different, very opposite of views. Many will say, and the Rambam says this, Shatamahu shatishbot haaretz kadei shatoisif teit kocha lizorea. The reason you're going to allow the land to lay fallow is to you add and allow it to rejuvenate. You want to give fertility to the land, so you leave it fallow. L'deyazu, and according to this opinion, Note Harav Hamora. The Rambam is the Rav Hamora, the author of the Mar Nevuchim, the Guide to the Perplexed. However, Rabim Chokim Olav, many disagree. Now, before we go to the other opinion, we just passed Pesach, and of course, the whole idea of Kitniot came up. So, it really didn't apply to Sfardim. This idea of rotation might have appeared in other areas, such as the Middle East. But in Europe, they did, this is well documented, they did this rotation, and he will even say, this is 400 years ago, that they divided the land into threes, and they rotated. They always left 1/3 fallow. Okay? One of the shiurim I went to, Rabbi Shai Finkelstein from Nitzanim, brought a lot of historical proof that not only what did they do, they actually figured out that legumes, when you plant legumes, beans and different types like that, in the fallow land, it actually increases the vitality of the ground. So instead of leaving it entirely fallow, it would make sense to get the best out of it, and it still replenishes the land. So what happens when you rotate? Eventually, right, that means that you're going to be growing legumes in a place that the year before you planted grains. Therefore, there's always going to be a few grains in your legumes. And there you have it. And it didn't start 400 years ago when the Kli Yakar. We're talking about 1,000 years ago. Well known, well documented. And just a side thought, Rabbi Berkowitz, originally from Eshet Torah, I learned with him, I got smicha from him, now the Rosh Hashiva of the Jerusalem Kollel. He explained, what is it about these minhagim? That the rabbis, they don't invent anything new. They're there to put a guard, a fence. They're concerned for us. They care about us. They love us. And they don't want to see us do the wrong thing. Like carry a shofar on Shabbat, for example. Or carry our lulav and esrog outside when we don't have an erev if and when Sukkot falls on Shabbat. So too, we could have been at a point where we were not as sensitive to chametz as we should have been. And by adding on this severe gezerah, stringency of not eating kitniot, people were more concerned about chametz. Of course, if you're going to be concerned about these legumes, so of course chametz becomes more severe, more in your consciousness. I happen to know I happen to be modern Orthodox, but that's not the point. People who are not really that strict about kashrut all year long. But comes Pesach, wow. They whip out the separate dishes, they don't eat kitniot, and it's like the whole world to them, keeping kosher for Pesach. And it could be, look what the rabbis have done. They really put into the consciousness to watch out for what you're going to eat during Pesach. You know? So I hope you followed what I said. Okay. So what about the other side? Why are people not really feeling this idea that it's to replenish the land? They say like this, Ravabim Cholkim Malaviyam, and they say, She'im Chashashu Torah. If the Torah, if God was really concerned about replenishing the land, that's why you should leave it fallow. So Shelo Techalesh Ha'adama, right? He was concerned. The Torah is concerned that the land should not become infertile. Lami Yischayvu Galus al Shemitah Sa'aretz. Why is the punishment? Why is there an exile come about as a result of not keeping Shemitah? Now you would say, oh well, if the Jews are thrown off the land, then the land will lie fallow, right? No, because what's going to happen? If we're not here, someone else will come. And they're not at all concerned about Shemitah. So if we're not here, it's going to be worked for sure all the time. Yeah, ansham shelo tosif haaretz tate kochalem. The logic is mita keneged mita, measure for measure. If the Jews who are living here do not keep Shemitah properly and work the land improperly, meaning through Shemitah, and the concern is that the land will become weak, so what should be the result? The land should become weak and give off inferior fruits. That's measure for measure. That's the logical punishment that we should get. And furthermore, she'ein l'zeh Shabbos laHashem. The verse said it's a Shabbos to God. It's a cessation. It's a rest for God. First of all, does God need anything? No. But it's according to that opinion, it would be a rest for the land. In other words, it's a rest for the land or it's a rest for God. the whole premise was you're resting the land so that it could rejuvenate. No, ki im l'tzarech haaretz. It's for the sake of the land, the needs of the land. And you can even see that if you go to Vayikra, Leviticus 26:34, right? As the punishment is, right, that we will be thrown into exile, then the land will appease its Shemitah years. Az tirtza haaretz. The land itself will be appeased for its Shemitahs, for its Shemitah years. The question is, Ma tarviach bezeh, sheyaglu mimenu Yisrael, v'yeshru aleha hagoyim asher leolam bo ya'avodu. What benefit, what profit is there in the land if the Jews are exiled from it, and who's going to come here and dwell? Non-Jews, and they're going to work it incessantly without any break. It doesn't make sense. Ech tishbot haaretz v'hashama mehem. How is the land going to rest? Because the Jews are not there. So there's a Sefer Ahakedah, and he gives a different reason. He gives an interesting reason. He says, the tachlit mitzvah zu, the purpose of this mitzvah of Shemitah and Yovel, is what? Lezecher chidush ha'olam, to remember that there's a creator of the universe. You need that every 7 years and every 49 years? What you remember is there's a 6,000 year cycle, not just, right? There's a 6,000 year cycle. And the 7,000th year is after Mashiach comes and you have resurrection of the dead. So you'll remember that there was a creator from the beginning and there's going to be an end. It's not forever, but you get like a whole picture of Jewish history. And the truth is, according to Kabbalah, this 6,000th year we're in is actually the 7th cycle. It's the 6,000th. Sorry, I go like this. Think of it like this. It's not the first cycle of 7,000 years, but it's the last cycle. So it's the last cycle before that last 7,000th year comes in as an eternal Shabbos. So there is this idea of thinking about all of world history, not just our universe that we're living in, but there were universes that were created before this universe, and we're at the end. So very nice. That's what the Akedah says, and the Abarbanel says something similar. But guess what the Kli Yakar says? Yaakov, he says, Gam ze rechoch mikilotai. This goes against my better judgment. My kidneys tell me this doesn't make sense. That's what the kidneys do. They're there to help you reason things out. Why? That slang for no further proof is actually necessary. Why? And I'm sure Yaakov was thinking this when I asked the question. Because you have every week, you have Shabbos. Isn't that supposed to remind you that there's a creator of the world? We're celebrating that there was a beginning, right? 6 days God created the world, and the 7th day is Shabbos. So that's every week. That's every day, because if we count every morning after Shacharis, remembering this is day 1 of the Shabbat, this is day 2 of Shabbos, 3 day of Shabbos. We remember Shabbos all week long. Especially according to Beit Shammai, if you're going to go out and buy things every day for the sake of Shabbos. Okay, but that's a whole other thing. Kiyom HaShabbos Hatmidi B'Kol Shavua. Right? You have Shabbos is a weekly event, and it's Bol L'Zeicher Chidush Olam. It's coming to remind you of this whole important fact that there's a creator of the universe. And if that's not helpful enough, Im Hu Lo Yoil. So what kind of salvation is going to come when you talk about every 7 years or every 49 years? And I think the older you get, the less likely you remember anything. Ma Yoshienu Zeh Haba Li'itim Rechokim. This is all an introduction so far. But we're getting somewhere. A little understanding. In order to resolve some of the language. The Kli Yakar is a great linguistic. I really learned a lot of my Hebrew by going over and over. I never took an Opan, so this is, for me, it's easy Hebrew. But I've been learning quite a few years. But For me, it's if I try to read the Maharal, wow, I get lost in the Maharal. But this is a little bit easier. It's one generation later. Omer Ani, the Kli Yakar says, I say, Shata mitzvah zuhu lahashrish es Yisrael b'midas ha'amuna v'habitachon b'Hashem. The reason for this mitzvah, meaning of Shemitah and Yovel, is to lahashrish, from the word sharish, to enroot, embed in the Jewish people this character trait, this attribute of faith and trust in Hashem. This is our life. But it's not like you think. Ki hashash HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This was God's main concern. He loves us, and He's concerned about us. Pen bevom el haaretz. He's afraid that we're going to come to the land. Ya'asku ba'avodas ha'adama al haminhag ha'tevi'i. And we're going to work the land with our hoes and our shovels and our little picks and whatever instruments we have in the most natural way. This is supernatural. This land is not normal. I don't mean it in a bad sense. I mean it in a really supernatural sense. Kasher kabir motza yodam. And when the Jews find that they succeed through their own efforts, yishkachu et Hashem, they will easily, I just added that word, easily, they will come to forget about Hashem. V'yasiru bitchonam mimenu, and will be removed their trust and assurity in Hashem. V'yakshavu kikocham v'oitzim yodam. They will think and consider that it was their own might that created all this success. How many of us in our own lives feel that sometimes? It's easy, you know? We can forget Hashem. Hashem says over and over again, you guys are going to become very wealthy and things are going to be really good and you're going to come to forget. So therefore I warn you not to, right? And the benching and all the, we're constantly being reminded. All these are gifts from God. People make the same effort. This guy goes to work from 8 in the morning and comes home at 6. 2 people, and one is more successful. How's that possible? We do the same work, the same job. Hashem is our assistant. He's our help. So what happens? We end up taking credit. This is going to be the main thing because God says, I brought you to the land. I'm the owner of the land. We're going to see in the Shemitah, it's going to go back to the original owners. You're going to even think that it's yours. It's not your land. And what happens during Shemitah? You have to open your gates. Okay, so animals come in, so you leave the gate closed, but you give the combination. People can come in. Just tell them to please lock close the gate on your way in, your way out. But everybody is going to share in the wealth of the land. Nobody is any more wealthier than anybody else. So he says, the kasher kabir motzu yodam. That's okay. V'yakshavu ki kocham v'otzim yodam osa lehem et ha'chayil zeh. It's so easy to think it was your own power, your own might, your own hands that created this wealth, that created this success. V'olam kaminhago noheg. And you actually think this is the way the world works, according to the natural way. V'yakshavu ha'aretz shalehem hi. And what is the result? You will think that the land belongs to you. It's yours. No. Ve'hem habalim, ve'ein zulatam. You're going to think you're the owners and there's nobody else. There's no room for God. Al ken hotziam Hashem min minhag hatavi legamre. That's why Hashem removed us, took us out from the natural way entirely. And biki b'shei shanim, for 6 years, derech ha'umos la'so shtei shanim zera v'shana achat bor. That's the way the world, the nations, they make 2 years seeding, and 1 year they let alone as bor, as left alone and fallow. Kidei shelo lahachish chelo, in order not to diminish its value, its strength, its success. So it doesn't weaken. Well, guess what? God, it's almost like a command. It's not a command, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, 6 years you shall seed your field. In other words, take my advice. You have to trust in me. Don't do like them who rotate every 3 years. Do it for 6 years. And you know what that should mean? That it's really weak, right? No. I'm going to promise you that not only are you not going to lose, but you're going to gain. Now hear the words. Sheishanim tizra sadecha. 6 years you shall sow your field. Midei shana b'shana, meaning year to year. Don't stop. Vani mavtichacha. I, God, am promising you. Lahosif kocha shalo tachish. I'm promising you that I'm going to add power and it will not diminish. Now this becomes a miracle within a miracle. Miracle within a miracle. Because sha'acher shetiz shizrata sheishanim, after you have now seeded, meaning you planted 6 years, you didn't leave anything fallow. Im b'shana shishit, if in that 6th year, lo yachish chelo, the field did not diminish. Hine l'kol pachos lo yosif la zekach, and let's say that he does promise there will be this plenty, but let's just say it didn't diminish. It didn't add, but it didn't diminish. That already is a miracle. Says Hashem, Adarabba, I'm going to even give you one better than that. Shebeshana hashishit, in that 6th year, Yosif la koach kokach, I am going to add in that 6th year a tremendous more amount of, let's say, potential, power. As it says, if you want to look in Leviticus 25:21, Tzaviti es birchasi b'shana hashishit v'oses hatavua l'shalosh hashanim. I will ordain my blessing for you in the 6th year, and it will yield a crop sufficient for 3 years. How do you get that 3 years? Where's 3 years from? So there's a Rashi that actually explains it. Here it is. For 3 years. Part of the 6th year from Nisan, that means the crop had just been reaped, until Rosh Hashanah. We're talking about for the entire 7th year. Okay, so one second. For the part of the 6th year, that's from Nisan until Rosh Hashanah, you're going to reap. Then you're going to sow a new crop. For the entire 7th year, you're not going to do anything, but God's going to give you enough for the 7th year, and He's going to give you enough for part of the 8th year, because you're only going to sow in Mar Cheshvan, which is the beginning of the rainy season, in the 8th year, and you're going to get this crop in Nisan, while you're still eating. You're going to be eating your 6th year's crop, according to Rashi, in the 8th year. So you have 3 years worth of crop. That's what God is promising. Va'al yidei kol hamoftim halalu. What's moftim? Miracles, signs, and wonders. Through all these signs, asher samti biyodcha, that God is saying, I'm placing into your hands, I'm placing into your midst. Teda, no, li kol haaretz. The land belongs to me, God. Va'al yidei zeh yiyu einecha nasuas el Hashem. That through this, your eyes will be raised towards the heavens, towards Hashem. Like we find by the man that came down from heaven. We got our daily bread handed to us on a silver platter. Now, truth be told, if you were righteous, you opened your front door and you just looked down and bent over and picked it up. I don't even think you had to walk out of your house. You just bend down and pick it, sit in front of your door. If you weren't so righteous, you had to walk down to the end of your driveway. And if you were really not righteous, you might have had to go around the corner. And everyone knew if you were righteous or not. So you better watch out. The truth is, the same thing's going to happen in the resurrection of the dead. Everyone will know what everyone else did wrong. If the mitzvahs you're creating light and energy through the mitzvahs. And the energy is going into your limbs, right? It's not a coincidence that Chazal used the idea that there are 365 don'ts and 245 positive do's, and that they are parallel to different organs in your body, because when you do a mitzvah, it energizes that limb for the world to come, for the resurrection of the dead. And if, God forbid, someone didn't put on tefillin correctly, their arm may be blemished. Right? Different organs of your body. If someone looks at things they shouldn't be looking at, they will probably have a blemish in their eye. Look like Moshe Dayan in the world to come, with a patch over your eye, and everyone will know you were looking at things you shouldn't be looking at. Truth be told, the Chofetz Chaim in his Hagdama, in his introduction to the laws of Shabbos, in the Mishnah Berurah, he says that out of all the organs, which organ is Shabbos? He says, the truth be told, you have to learn the laws of Shabbos, because someone could be resurrected without a pinky, without an ankle, without a leg, without an arm, but you cannot be resurrected without a heart. So you better get with the program. Learn Hilchos Shabbos, because it's related to the heart. It's the seat of Emunah. You want to have resurrection of the dead, you got to have minimum Shabbos. But you want to have the whole body, do all the mitzvahs. And if you can't do them, learn. When you learn about the mitzvahs, if you're doing them, pay. You can participate. There are plenty of other people that can sit and learn if you can't. There are plenty of people that are looking for partners in the mitzvahs they do. So take advantage. We only have this world to do that in. Okay. So we're going to look up towards Hashem. Like we see that the man came down on a daily basis. In order that they would look, they would raise their eyes towards the heavens, towards Hashem constantly. And have constant faith and assurity in Hashem. This is what Shemitah is all about. And just, we're going to have another 3.5 years. 3.5 years we have Shemitah. So we have preparation. It's all in the preparation. But truth be told, most of the laws of Shemitah are rabbinic today. When most of those Jews live in the land of Israel, there will be a major world transformation. And we will be keeping Shemitah on a Torah level. And Bezrat Hashem, with your prayers and our help, we can hopefully, most of the Jews will come back to Eretz Yisrael this Shemitah year, this cycle. Yaakov, I'm talking to you. And you can make a difference. You could outweigh the whole thing. The whole world. It's going to be a different world. Okay. It's going to be a different world. Shemitah will be a deraisa. Yov will be a deraisa. So many other. There's going to be a transformation on a.
So how many people should come? What? 1, 10, 100?
We have room. We have Tamash Shloshim V'Shmona. We're building up 2 floors on every building in Jerusalem. The ones that are 30 years old, anyway. Come. You don't have to live in Yerushalayim. There's Yeshuvim, and there's Moshavim. There's plenty of suburbs. Mali Adumim.
So, leave or not to?
Leave Chutz La'aretz?
No, Yerushalayim.
Live in Jerusalem?
To leave means to relocate.
Do whatever you want. You should land and live in the land of Israel. I don't know if there's a mitzvah to live in the land, in the city of Jerusalem. There's a mitzvah?
I don't know.
I don't know. I learned the 613 mitzvahs once. I don't recall coming across them. That one, that you have to live in Jerusalem. But guess what? It's the most desirous city. Yeah. That's the truth. God put into this world 10 parts of many different attributes. For example, speech. He gave 9/10 to the women, and the other 10th he spread amongst the rest of the world. But comes beauty. 9/10 of beauty went to Yerushalayim, and the other 10th was spread to the rest of the world. That we know. So, this is what Shemitah is about. Shelo ya'avdu ha'adama kol shana shvi'it. Do not work the land the entire 7th year. Ein zera ve'ein katzir. You don't seed, nor do you harvest. And that's true today. On a deraisa level, all the other things we're keeping is the rabbanan. V'yismichu al hanes. You should rely on this miracle, right? Normally we say don't rely on miracles. You got to get up and do your actions. This God is already telling you, rely. It has to happen in the 6th year, correct? So you have to rely on it from the very beginning. V'yismichu al hanes Shetase hatavua l'shalosh shanim. You should rely on this miracle that will be performed for you for the next 3 years. Okay, now, as we were talking, you got the idea that there was going to be a bounty. All of a sudden, you're going to have, I don't know, where you're going to store all this stuff. It's going to rot. Listen. Harei shnei ma'aseh nisim. There's actually 2 acts of miracles that happen, and a third that surrounds the other 2. V'shlosh shlishim al kula. That the tuvua sheta'aseh b'shana hashishit. According to him, the grains, the produce that is produced during that 6th year, af imlo yihyeba ki im shior achila v'shana achas. Remember, you're supposed to rely on this as a miracle. And all that came that 6th year was 1 year. Just said 3 years. But maybe it's going to be 1 year. Mekom mekom yishlach Hashem es habracha v'asamehem. Nevertheless, God himself is sending a bracha to cause this to increase, to be plentiful. Then what's going to happen? Sheyocha kima, a person can eat a small amount, mitbarech b'me'av, and he's blessed within his stomach. In other words, if you ate a third of what you normally eat, be totally satisfied. What? You will be totally satisfied. It'll blow up in your stomach in a good way. It'll satisfy you. To provide enough nutrients. Until those grains that seem to be 1 year's worth, it's really packed with 3 years worth of food in that package that says this is good enough for 1 year. It's got a superpower of 3 years wrapped in it. And how do we know? It actually says, if you look in Leviticus 25:21, it says, Va'asat et hatavua. It will yield hatavua. The hay it's called a hay hayediyah, an infinitive hay. It's like it will yield the crop. What is it? Or yield a crop. What does it mean? This hay hayediyah? Now it could have said, Va'asit tavua. It will yield crop for 3 years. But it says it will yield this specific crop. Meaning you'll get the same crop you get every year in the 6th year, but it will be plenty. Sha'oto hatavua hi regila. Sha'oto hatavua shi regila lasot midei shana v'shana. That this is the miracle. That the crop you get in that 6th year looks like the same crop that you get year to year. Kain taseh gam b'shana shishit. That's what you're going to get in the 6th year. The Yosef Hashem koach ba'aretz. God is actually giving so much tremendous power and potential, active potential to the land. Ad sha'osa hatavua taspik l'shalosh shanim. It's providing. The land itself is providing enough for 3 years. V'zeh v'adai nes nigla. This is absolutely an open and revealed miracle greater than the previous miracles that we mentioned. And this is the reason. According to the Kli Yakar, what I'm explaining to you is much clearer than all the other commentators have said. Lefiza, according to this, dinhu, right, the law dictates, or it's logical, the conclusion of violating Shemitah, right, we said that you will be exiled from the land if you violate Shemitah. It's from the aspect that you lacked amunah in the mitzvahs or in God. Since you didn't believe in Hashem, you did not trust in God's salvation. He promised you and you didn't trust Him. That He would perform for you, He would make for you this miracle, that He would create or make for you a produce for 3 years. As it says in Jeremiah chapter 5 verse 1, Jeremiah was the prophet towards, the prophet of doom, right? You guys are going into exile. So there's nobody here who's even looking to trust towards Hashem. Listen to the words. In the Hebrew, Shotetu b'chutzos Yerushalayim, like walk about in the courtyards of Jerusalem. U'du'u v'ru, you should know and you should see. Im yesh ish mevakesh emunah, there's nobody with faith. And they're going out for 70 years. He's the prophet telling them. But God does say, Ve'eslach, I'm going to forgive it. Gam ha'aretz atzma, ready? The land itself is alive. The land has power and it's doing God's will. The land itself is tachpid al zemod. The land itself is also concerned, perhaps for its own honor. Remember, when, like Mark Twain, that was the guy's name, he says, when the Jews aren't here, the land is desolate. The closer you get to Yerushalayim, the more desolate it is. Today it's quite the opposite. But when the Jews are not here, even the land is concerned. What did we say? The land will kick out. They will kick the Jews out. It will spit it out. It will vomit out the Jews. Ki rotzona sheyitgalgel zchut al yada. Really, the land wants to produce the food for the Jews to stay here. It's better for the land if the Jews are here. What we already know. I mean, they tried to do what they call Jericho first, give away some of the land of Israel. It was disaster, right? It was disaster. Okay, we're not going to go there right now, but the land wants the Jews here and it wants to produce. Okay, it wants to take credit, not credit, but it wants to be part of the process of the redemption. And it itself wants to lechazek amunah b'Hashem al yada. That it wants to be able to increase amunah in the Jewish people they have in God through the land. Furthermore, sha'al yedei zeh yaminu ki kulam einan rak arisim bekarka. That through this we kept Shemitah properly, right? We would actually believe that we were only sharecroppers. The whole idea is the land is not ours. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baal Hasadeh. God is the owner of the field. B'davar zeh haaretz chafetza, and this is what the land really desires. HaKadosh Baruch Hu biatzmo Baal va'adonah. Right? That the God Himself should be. That's what the land wants. God is the landowner and the master. Ki lo yisbarach haaretz, that it belongs to God. Ubito Shemitah, by not keeping Shemitah properly, she'achaziku hema kabalim ba'aretz. Us, the people, we hold on to the land as if we're the owners. Roishu shetachbir artozeh. The land doesn't like that. That's why the land is going to appease. The land is going to be appeased by the exile. Az tirtza haaretz et shabsosecha, as we saw in Leviticus 26:34. Then the land will be appeased for the Shemitahs that weren't kept. Aval al umos, but if the non-Jews come and live here, lo takpid im yinhagu ba minhag tvi. It's no problem if they lived here, or even in the nations around the world. They behave normal. There's no obligation. Ki belav hachi kol hanahagatam al piateva ve'ein behem emunah. Because anyway, their life is just natural. It's not based on emunah and belief in Hashem. V'yachar hatzazu navo liva'er ha'psukim. This is still, I'm sorry to say, only an introduction. That after I gave this proposal, this introduction, now we're going to come and discuss the different verses. Kihema maskimim lekavana zu hamitit, and you'll see each verse totally falls in line with the process that he outlined here. Asher ein safek ba. There's no doubt about it. I will tell you now. I'm going to end the class and then continue learning if anybody wants to stick around. I want to just let you know that it's, what time is it? It's like an hour. So the shower is usually an hour.
We're at 8 a.m.
So if anybody wants, don't feel, I'm not going to feel.
A minute, could you start again?
This is that was like an introduction. I don't know if you're now in love with the Kli Yakar, but you guys want to stick around?
Certainly some questions.
Yeah, I'll take questions.
שיבנה, יבנה המקדש, יציון, יציון, יציון תמלא, יש שם שיר חדש